In this video, I'll be talking about my 33 on 33 plein air painting project from 2013, recounting days 19 through 24. Day 19 was my third day in Wellington, and I had been thinking about painting this building for at least a week by that time. And although it was a very striking building, especially in the morning light, I decided to explore Wellington a bit further to see what I could see. Built in 1885 as a Quaker meeting house, this building is now a museum featuring elements of local history, particularly the canning industry that was so prolific in Prince Edward County. Between 1882 and 1996, there were over 75 different canning factories in operation. It was here 6 years later that I painted my portrait of Minerva McCrimmon. This building, now known as Manor House, is a stone house built in 1799 and is the oldest of its kind in Wellington. On the previous day, the morning was really foggy, but this morning was really sunny, which really shows off Wellington's charm. This photo is looking east, down Main Street. My subject for day 19 was Wellington Harbor, and these are the GPS coordinates for the harbor in case anyone wants to get there by boat. I like the moodiness of the morning fog, but this sunshine was absolutely glorious around Picton Harbor that day. Lots of wildlife paid me brief visits throughout the morning, mostly birds and bugs, and I was lucky to photograph these groups of Canada geese swimming around in the middle of my painting, so to speak. My stop for day 20 was Fields on Westlake, a stunning location made no less impressive by that day's dreary weather. I managed to take a few photos of some of the buildings on the grounds, apparently in the midst of Mosquito Fest, before finally settling on a subject to paint, and before the rain started. Their website claims it's one of the most photographed barns in Canada, and I don't have any trouble believing that. My painting's composition is not from this angle, however. I was parked in a spot just to the right, enabling me a good view from inside the van since rain was forecast. Every day that I passed this majestic place, I grew more and more certain that I would stop here for this project. Here's a contender for painting subject of the day. This cute little matching building dates back to the 1860s. The carriage house. It's no surprise that I like silos, and this view would have been an interesting painting for it that day, but I felt it was too subversive to paint this while at Fields on Westlake and ignore the beautiful buildings available there. Here's a cute little house, neighbors across the street. And here's the farmhouse inn from the side. This view was a very strong contender also, especially because of the foliage obstruction in the foreground, but I already did a house obstructed by tree composition on day 17, so I walked around to get a better view of the house. Still a strong contender from this angle. It's simply a gorgeous building, and I love all that ivy, but my mind kept going back to the big red barn, so that was that. My stop for day 21 is my second of only 2 stops between Wellington and Bloomfield, and after my first day in Bloomfield on day 22, I'll be 2/3 of the way through this whole project. For days now, I'd been noticing this farmer's field and the sensual undulating rows of whatever this crop is, and thought it would be interesting to paint. Rolling hills seem to be rare in PEC, so I thought I should take advantage of this view. Additionally, there was a puddle left over from all the recent rain, and including that would be a testament to the rapidly changing weather we've been having recently. It was a beautiful day to paint, if a little chilly, but the sun on my back was a nice change from being inside the van on and off for the past few days. It's also much darker in the van, and that affects my colors and their values. On day 22, I finally reached the lovely town of Bloomfield, and as I mentioned earlier, this marks the 2/3 point in my journey across Prince Edward County painting daily for 33 days. And the weather was gorgeous. Bloomfield has a lot of great buildings and shops and such, but my stop for this day wasn't quite in downtown Bloomfield, and I decided to paint a strange building at the junction of Highway 33 and Highway 62. This yellow line in this picture is actually the south end of 62 where it merges with 33 towards the heart of Bloomfield. Farms are especially stunning in the crisp morning light. This shot was taken from across the street of my subject for this day. I enjoy passing this lovely farm and the cows that are usually outside every time I go to and from Wellington. That's right, this is a Mac's Milk convenience store, although I think they just go by Mac's now, and I think they are probably all replaced by Circle K's at this point. I kind of miss the original Mac's mascot. Formerly a Becker's convenience store, and before that a garage gas station, this is by far the weirdest convenience store I've seen. So, coupled with the fact that this sits at the junction of highways in 33 and 62, I just had to paint it. This is probably the only Mac's retrofitted into a Tudor revival style building, and certainly very hard to miss whether you're heading to Bloomfield from Wellington or Belleville alike. The inside layout is similar to any convenience store with aisles of sundries, and it was quite busy with folks getting supplies for the weekend. Of course, just a few houses down from the junction is the legendary Angelines. The Fida family are great hosts and provide excellent food and beautiful surroundings, and I was very close to painting here today, but the Mac's was just too weird to pass up. My subject for this day was the Sailor House Cafe, which is tucked away just down this driveway between the Sailor House B&B and Bloomfield United Church. Here's Bloomfield Town Hall, built in 1869, and here's some nice buildings that were contenders for the painting for this day. Really nice and boxy, but also nice and appealingly boxy. I took a picture of this building because I thought it kind of looks like it's surprised. And here's the famous sailor block, desaturated for oldie-timey's sake. I almost painted this charming little blue house for day 24, but I couldn't get a good view from inside the car in case it rained. So instead I went back into town and decided to paint a portion of the sailor block. I knew rain was forecast, but it only looked foreboding, so I sat up in front of Bloomfield United and started painting the sailor block across the street. About 2 hours later it started to rain tiny sprinkly drops that I thought would soon pass, so I stayed outside, getting a few drops on my palette and in-progress canvas, but about 10 minutes later the rain became more insistent and I had to move into the van for the next few hours. But I like the way the painting came out though.